What is up, you guys? Teller checking in for UFC on ABC4, taking place in Charlotte, North Carolina. We got a heavyweight headliner between Jairzinho, Rozenstruik, and Jailton Almeida. Jailton Almeida definitely being one of the real gems to come out of Dana White's Contender Series. This is a fighter that has all the potential in the world. There's a very realistic chance he could be holding gold or around his waist in the near future. That's the type of potential we're talking about here. And I love the matchup against Rozenstruik, a very respected heavyweight fighter. This isn't Almeida, slopping around in the mud with Porker Porter. This is a legit threat here in Rozenstruik. Rozenstruik, a very dangerous striker. I'm excited for this matchup. Before we jump into the first fight, real quick, I'll let you guys know we did have a profitable weekend, including the Demetrius Johnson play that we hit, the 3-unit play on Demetrius Johnson. Grabbed that just slightly over a minus 150 line, which I really liked. You guys know I threw that here on the channel as well as a free play. We also hit the massive 5-unit free play on Kennedy as well. And then we hit another solid play on the card. We did have 2 small losses. We had a 1-unit stab on the ugly monster Braxton there as he made his debut. It was a 1-unit stab. Got it at plus 160 underdog odds. And he didn't come through. Was throwing heavy shots early. Didn't come through there. And then I also had a 3-unit play on Gilbert Burns. Listen, Gilbert Burns, you guys saw it, man. He was injured almost instantaneously in that fight, and I really was disappointed we didn't get to see those guys really throw down, and I wanted to see a healthy Burns, but nonetheless, Bilal Muhammad got his hand raised, so it is what it is. I thought Muhammad could have done a lot more. I thought he could have finished Burns if he would have pressed the fight. Burns did not throw one strike with his left arm. He was essentially a one-armed fighter there, so very frustrating, but overall, again, profits on the weekend, so we'll take that. All right, some slight profits there. We'll take that. All right, guys. So real quick, also before we jump to the first fight, catch me on all my social media. Give me a follow. On Instagram, on Twitter. It's all scrolling below. If you guys are looking to sign up for a new sports book, reach out to me. You guys know I'll always hook you guys up if you sign up through my referral link. You'll get an added bonus to your account. I'll throw you guys some free official plays, and that's about it. Let's go talk about this first fight.
Welcome to the show. This is the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.
Kicking the card off, we have a women's bantamweight matchup between Jessica Rose Clark and the UFC newcomer Tainara Lisboa. The Brazilian here, the Brazilian Lisboa, she comes into the UFC with a lengthy Muay Thai background. That's really her bread and butter. It is her striking. So she still needs to show more to us as far as the grappling goes. I know that she's coming off a recent submission victory, but you also need to take note that she has been fighting very low-level competition over on the MMA side of things. Now, when it comes to the Muay Thai side of things, she's fought the cream of the crop. She had a match against Valentina Shevchenko. She was able to go to a decision with her. You can pull that fight up on YouTube. I think she showed her toughness in that fight. She also had an MMA fight with Norma Dumont, and she was submitted in that fight. But here's the interesting thing, right? She was submitted early in that fight. She was caught with a rear naked choke. Early on, though, I think that she showed some decent promise as far as her takedown defense goes. She stuffed some early takedowns. Eventually, she did make a mistake and she got choked out. But you could see that there's some potential there, especially when you take into consideration that fight took place all the way back in 2016, I believe. We'll take a quick look real quick. And that fight did take place in 2016, right? So obviously, she's been working on her ground game extensively since then. We talked about some of the work that she's been putting in, but again, against lower level competition. But I kind of liked what I saw from her on tape. And I do think that she's going to have a striking edge here against Jessica Rose Clark, who has just really never impressed me with her striking. When you think about Jessica Rose Clark's biggest wins in the UFC, maybe I'm skipping over one or two, but the big ones that stand out to me, she kind of controlled her opponents against the cage. She used her grappling and her wrestling to sneak in some takedowns, work some ground and pound. I know she's been working on her striking, but I don't think that she's going to be able to hang with Lisboa on the feet. I think Lisboa will get the better of her. Lisboa has a very solid frame for the division as well. Lisboa is going to have about a 2.5-inch reach advantage. She's an inch taller. She has a solid frame for the division. I don't know if I see Jessica Rose Clark hanging with her on the feet, but it's going to be one of those types of fights. can Lisboa stuff the takedowns of Jessica Rose Clark? And real quick, I definitely want to mention what Jessica Rose Clark has been doing as of recently, because it's kind of interesting, right? She had 2 big-time victories against Sarah Alpar and Jocelyn Edwards. Not the biggest of names, but the way that she went out there and kind of used her grappling and her pressure to take control of those fights, I think people were starting to get a little bit high on her, right? If you look at the betting lines, people were starting to respect her, and then she goes and gets submitted in the first round 2 times in a row. Not to throw shade at my boy, man, but it almost looked a little bit Derek Minner-esque, the way that she was just going in there and just losing early. Hopefully she's going to go out here and try to get the victory. This match here, it's a little sketchy to me. You have to also mention that Jessica Rose Clark has more than double the amount of pro MMA experience. You guys, I think that the responsible thing probably is to take Jessica Rose Clark based on the fact that she'll have that grappling edge. She's probably a little bit more proven fighting in the UFC, but the way that she's looked in these last 2 fights, and then when you take into consideration that Lisboa does have some legit potential, again, her striking is pretty nasty, and she's going to be comfortable there in the feet. I think she can land some big shots. She has to keep this fight on the feet, though. I've been back and forth with who I'm going to pick, and I am going to settle in with the Lisboa pick. I'm going to settle in with the UFC newcomer. You take a look at the betting line. It's pretty interesting, right? For a fighter making her UFC debut against Jessica Rose Clark. This line it's essentially a pick'em line. Lisboa is at even odds right now. Jessica Rose Clark at a -120, a very slight lean towards Jessica Rose Clark's way. And some books, it's a straight pick'em already. I think that tells a little bit of what people are thinking when they dive into this fight here. But again, I could be eating my words here. Listen, I don't give you guys this pick with a lot of confidence. This is a sketchy fight, and this is one of those types of fights that honestly we're going to have to see it play out to really know how this fight's going to go. There's a lot of question marks here with the level of competition, this and that. So yes, my pick will be the newcomer Lisboa. I'm going to say she lands some big shots, and she's able to keep this fight standing for the most part, at least enough to land some damage there and kind of take control of this fight and start to be the bully against Jessica Rose Clark, who I think mentally is going to be doubting herself a little bit as she's been finished in the first round in her last 2 fights. This is going to be a fun fight here in the welterweight division. We got Bryan Battle taking on Gabe Green, 2 very tough fighters. Bryan Battle, of course, the Ultimate Fighter winner there, a fighter that really wasn't favored to go so far on the show early on, and he proved himself, right? This fighter, Bryan Battle, he's really showed that he's a well-rounded fighter. He's scrappy. He can stuff takedowns, and he's a guy that's going to really fight you tooth and nail till that bell rings, or unless you could shut his lights off. That's the type of competitor we're talking about. Gabe Green, essentially the same type of dude. I really think these guys are going to clash here. I want to talk a little bit more about Bryan Battle. Looks to be coming into this fight in phenomenal shape. He's a local fighter, right? This fight taking place in his own state there in North Carolina. Should have the crowd behind him here a little bit as he trains over, I forgot the name of the gym. I'll pull it up real quick. Carolina Combat. There it is. And you know what? Bryan Battle, to me, is a fighter that I expect to see grow fight to fight extensively. He's 28 years old. He only has 10 pro fights. Just had his 10th pro fight recently. He took that loss against the very tough Hanat Fakhradinov, who really used his grappling and his wrestling to kind of control that fight. But you have to understand that Hanat is a high caliber grappler, and he's a tough dude who has a lot of experience behind him there. There was a big difference in the level of experience. We take a look at how many fights Hanat had going into that match there. And Bryan Battle, although he was beaten up in that fight, never looked for a way out, went to decision there. Before that, he had the knockout victory over Takashi Sato. Of course, he had the victory over Tresean Gore. Victories over Gilbert Urbina, Andre Petrosky. These are legit fighters, right? Think about it. These guys were on the show, but these guys have all proven to be legit UFC fighters. Tresean Gore, Petrosky. Gabe Green was the best fighter on that show. He's 28 years old. He had his first pro fight. I want to talk about this real quick. He had his first pro fight, I believe was it 2019? I might be wrong there, but he hasn't been in the game for a long time, man. This is a guy, I really believe that he's going to get sharper and sharper fight to fight. And obviously he's fully in now that he's in the UFC, and I'm sure for a while he's fully in on becoming the best fighter he can be. He's going to have about a 4-inch reach advantage, which is nothing new, right? He has a solid frame for the division. He's 2 inches taller, essentially 3 inches taller. He has the length going for him here. Gabe Green's tough. Gabe Green's going to try to close the distance. He's going to be in there scrapping to the end, like I said. And I think that this fight's going to play out very closely. Gabe Green has some solid striking. I think that these guys are going to be throwing down. I see this fight taking place in the feet. I think that they trade on the feet. And you know, I'm telling you right now, I'm not biased in my pick at all, man. Bryan Battle's a guy that always shows love on IG. He's always liking my post and whatnot. He's a solid dude. He gives me, he followed me ever since The Ultimate Fighter when I did a couple of videos about him breaking down the weekly episodes, which I will be doing again for this upcoming Ultimate Fighter season for sure. But there's no bias here, man. I'm rolling with Bryan Battle. Although I have a lot of respect for Gabe Green, Bryan Battle to me is a solid fighter. I know he's as hungry as ever. Fight taking place in his backyard. I think he shows up here. Gabe Green, very tough, but also, take note. I mean, he's coming off a loss against Ihor Garry, who we'll be talking about here shortly, a very tricky striker. Victories over Philip Rowe and Johan Linnes before that. Johan Linnes, I think that he's shown to be not as good as maybe some of us thought he had the potential to be. Cardio questioning and this and that. Had a loss against D-Rod a couple fights ago. D-Rod, tough dude. We'll be talking about him. Obviously, he's taking on Ihor Garry here. But I'll cut to the chase here. I am going to roll with my boy Bryan Battle here, man. I'm going to roll with him here. I have a feeling that he shows up. And let's go take a look at the betting line. If you guys can see it here, Gabe Green is a -135. He opened as a -125 favorite on BetMGM, so a little bit of action coming in on him. He's now a -135. We'll keep an eye on that line, but I don't expect too much major movement. This fight the line should stay pretty close. But people respecting Gabe Green, of course, I get it. Give me Bryan Battle to win a toughly fought decision. Yeon Kim taking on Mandy Bohm. Mandy Bohm here, this is do or die for her, if you ask me. She lost her last two fights. Since joining the UFC, she lost both those fights there. And I just really haven't been that impressed with what we've seen from her. Again, this is a do or die type of fight. So you have to understand that she's coming in very motivated. She obviously knows she needs that W. But she has a tough task in front of her, man. Yeon Kim, a talented striker. I know that she's been taking L's over the past couple of years. But you also have to understand that she's been in some very, very closely contested matches. First and foremost, the fight with Molly McCann, that fight went down to the wire. I believe some people had her winning that fight. It was very close, but she showed the striking skills that she possesses there. A lot of people thought that she definitely should have won the Priscilla Cachoeira fight. That was another close one. I think that I had her winning that fight as well. And we know Priscilla is a very tough customer there as well. Coming off a loss against Jocelyn Edwards, that's not the best look there. I believe that fight played very closely as well. So some tough losses that really fights that could have went either way. Alexa Grasso, the current champ. But we've seen her put on a show with her striking before. She's very technically sound, 33 years old. She has some experience under her belt at this point in time. Right now, we're talking about a fighter that has 17 professional fights. And again, Mandy Bohm, with her almost 10 fights with the no contest, I don't know. I haven't really seen enough from her to really know if she's a UFC caliber fighter. And we could talk about that real quick, but I mean, fighting out of Germany, she lost to Ariane Lipsky and Victoria Leonardo. The Victoria Leonardo fight being the more alarming loss there. Victoria Leonardo, a fighter that's had her rough spots in the octagon as well, and she went out there and got the job done. So, has a couple submissions under her belt throughout her career. Wasn't really overly impressed with the level of competition. And I am taking Yeon Kim to get the W here. She'll have a 1-inch reach advantage. Nothing really going on there. Both women the same height. These women are going to be very similarly stacked up when you see them at the weigh-ins. I just think that the difference will be the skill level of Kim's striking. I think she has a Taekwondo background. But her striking's solid. She throws nice kicks. She has good boxing, and I think that she outpoints Mandy. I don't know if she lands that big shot. We're not going there, but let's pull up the betting line on this fight. Yeon Kim is a -210 favorite, right? So Mandy Bohm a +174. You know how it is nowadays taking hefty favorites on the women's side of things. And how it's been. It's always dangerous. I'll still feel more comfortable taking a -210 line on Kim. I don't like what I've seen from Mandy, and I don't really feel the attraction of attacking that +174 dog line. I don't see any value. In the lightweight division, we got Natan Levy taking on Pete Rodriguez. Of course, this fight was supposed to happen a couple weeks ago. It was rescheduled here for this upcoming weekend. This is a fun fight. This is a fight that I'm looking forward to. It's definitely going to play out entertainingly, in my opinion. Natan Levy, 31 years old. He is a fighter that checks off a lot of boxes. He is a very professional fighter, high fighter IQ. He's well-rounded. We've seen that he's been working on his grappling. He throws good kicks. You know, he comes from that traditional martial arts background, but he's really taken that background and dove right into the sport of MMA and has intertwined it very well. You know, and then you got his opponent, Pete Rodriguez, who is just a very raw fighter, right? He has only five victories as a pro, all five of those victories being by way of knockout. I mean, he carries some good power. He has good boxing skills. It's hard to really put your finger on the caliber of fighter that he is, though, right? All five of those guys that he finished, lower level fighters, including the victory that he had in the UFC where he knocked out Mike Jackson. You guys know I was so happy to see this. You guys know I'm not a fan of Mike Jackson. I don't know who was more happy to see this knockout, me or Jake Shields. Cannot stand that guy. So Pete Rodriguez always gets respect for me for doing that and knocking him out the way that he knocked him out. You know, but on a serious note, I mean, there's just not a lot of big names under Pete Rodriguez's resume. You know, we know he had the loss against Dricus, I'm calling him Dricus du Plessis. For some reason, I always want to confuse Jack Della Maddalena and Dricus du Plessis. They do some things similarly. They have the long names and all that, but obviously very different at the same time. You know, he got knocked out by Jack Della Maddalena in the first round. No real shame in that. I mean, if you're going to go out there and try to go toe-to-toe with a guy like Jack, this dude's going towards the top of the totem pole here, man. Jack is very talented. So again, hard to understand what kind of fighter we're talking about when we talk about Pete Rodriguez. Is he going to be on the level of a Natan Levy, a fighter that is definitely proven to be a UFC caliber fighter? All right, a guy that's well-rounded, coming off victories over Mike Breen and Gennaro Valdez. A little bit of lower level fighters in the octagon, but still getting the job done. The loss against Rafa Garcia, that fight played out very closely. Very, very closely. So he showed his grit in that fight. And I think that the Rafa Garcia loss proved more than any of these other fights. I think that this is the biggest fight on his resume, even though it's a loss, because it was that close and Rafa Garcia is the real deal. So, you know, where am I going to go with my pick? I got to pick Natan Levy. All right. We got to take the fighter here that is just shown to be a more proven fighter at this point in time. Again, we could pull up the significant stats and whatnot. The numbers very skewed. Pete Rodriguez absorbing 11.69 strikes per minute. Obviously, Jack Della Maddalena did all that there. So we're not going to dive too much into these numbers. Not really enough to talk about there. You know, we'll cut to the betting line. Let's take a look at this betting line. That's something interesting. Natan Levy is a minus 285 favorite over Pete Rodriguez, who is a plus 225. I mean, you're either going to throw Natan Levy in a parlay, man. I mean, I feel comfortable that Levy is probably going to get the job done here. That line's a little too high for me, especially based on the fact that Pete Rodriguez carries that power. From Natan Levy gets mixed up in a gunslinging type of affair, could get clipped. Or, again, we don't really know what Pete's about, and maybe he shows that he is really about that life, and we haven't seen it, right, based on the resume. So I would probably go dog or pass personally. That's a little bit of a high line for Natan Levy, but again, I think he sneaks in some takedowns as this fight goes to the deeper waters. I expect him to be in better shape, have better cardio, and be more well-rounded. In the ever so fun to watch light heavyweight division, we got Ihor Potieria taking on Carlos Ulberg. Of course, Carlos Ulberg coming in from Dana White's Contender Series. He had that extensive kickboxing background. Fighter that's known for training with Israel Adesanya, has a very similar fighting style with his striking and whatnot. Obviously, a very promising fighter. He's now 32 years old. Ihor Potieria, another fighter that came off Dana White's Contender Series, had a really good showing. And then obviously, you know, being from Ukraine, there was you know, a long period of time where he kind of disappeared. I don't know. You know, he used to train at American Top Team. Obviously, he wasn't putting in the work over there. You know, he finally made his UFC debut. And, you know, I don't know if we should hold him to the fire as much as maybe some of us want to, because the performance was pretty bad against Nicholas Negamariano. He really was exploited in that fight where he was finished. You know, he's still only 26 years old, and yes, he was finished in the second round, but he was outclassed in that fight. And then he bounces back with the victory against Mauricio Shogun Rua, who we all know is just, you know, he was finished. And in fact, I capitalized. I had an official play in Ihor in that fight, and that was just a fade on Shogun, unfortunately. You know, I was rolling with the youth and the size of Ihor there. But you know what? I mean, he delivered, but again, I'm not really giving him too much credit there. This is a completely different type of fight. Carlos Ulberg has been looking really good as of recently. We talk about some of the work that he's been doing. Just knocked out Nikolai Negamariano, knocked out Tafon and Chukwi before that. The victory over Fabio Cherant, he was very hesitant in that fight. He was very gun-shy. Probably had something to do with the fact that he was just knocked out by Kennedy Zhuchekowu before that. You guys know Kennedy. I got nothing but love towards Kennedy, man. Just had that big play cashing him, that free play. Hopefully you guys rode with me there. But Kennedy ate a lot of shots from Carlos. Carlos is learning the sport of MMA on the job. Only 8 pro fights at the time. I believe he had, 6 pro fights or something like that, 6 fights, whatever it was. Obviously, he's learning, and he put the kitchen sink into Kennedy's skull. Wasn't able to finish him. Kennedy absorbed all that. We talked about the chin he has, and then eventually Kennedy broke him down. That's why he was so hesitant in that Fabio Cherant fight. But, he's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage here. He's going to have a big-time striking advantage. Will Ihor be able to make this ugly and drag him down to the mat? Clinch him up, land some ground and pound or some strikes against the cage? That's what Ihor will have to do. I don't really have much faith in him pulling that off. That's why I am taking Carlos Ulberg to get the job done here. I won't go on too much about it. Let's take a look at what this line's looking like. Carlos Ulberg is a -375. So obviously the masses are feeling similarly to how I feel about this fight, which is Ulberg landing some big shots in the feet, hurting Potieria bad, and just not having enough faith that Potieria keeps this fight down in the mat and can smother Ulberg and make it ugly enough. I don't see it, and I need to see more than just going out there and taking out Shogun. Yeah, Carlos Ulberg's my pick, and maybe that's a parlay piece there for you. But still, it's the light heavyweight division. You got to be a little bit careful when you're talking about these big men throwing limbs around. But give me Ulberg to get the job done. Probably going to get a finish there too. Probably finishes the fight before the midway of the 3rd round or so. Once again, in the bantamweight division, we got Cody Stamann taking on Douglas Silva de Andrade. Douglas has been around the block for a long time. He's one of those fighters that just reminds me of a gladiator. I don't know if you guys kind of know what I'm talking about, but there's these specific fighters that just have these gladiator type vibes to them. I mean, obviously all the UFC fighters are essentially gladiators, right? Modern day gladiators. But it's something about like the stoic personality of a Douglas and just how professional he is. Obviously it's the physical shape that he carries himself. But he just reminds me of that Robbie Lawler type of fighter, which I know that they're different in a lot of ways too, but I don't know if my point's getting across to you, man. This guy's just all business, and he just he lives for the sport of fighting. He's 37 years old. He's still stepping down in the cage in phenomenal shape. He's very well-rounded. He carries some big-time power as well. Listen, 37 years old, and understand that his skill set has not really dropped off much at all. If you really want to take a look at some of the work that he's been putting in, he's had some of his bigger victories as of recently. He lost to Syed Nurmagomedov, a very high caliber fighter in the division before that. Submitted Sergey Morozov, who is a talented fighter. Had the victory over Perello before that. Had a loss to Leron Murphy, a high caliber fighter. Had the victory over Henan Barao. I would have liked to see him finish that fight. He didn't finish that fight, but it was what it was. Finished by Piotr Yan. Then had a victory over Marlon Chito Vera, another high caliber fighter. Lost to Rob Font, another high caliber fighter. And I think that's why you've seen him go in there, like the fight we talked about earlier where he was able to prevail against Morozov and some of these names like Marlon Chito Vera. We've seen him thrive in some of those big fights because he's just so battle tested. And I think even though he's lost a lot of those fights against big names, he's constantly working, constantly learning on the job, learning by just getting the minutes clocked in the octagon. Again, a loss against Zubara Tukigov when Tukigov was probably even a better fighter back then. He's been on the downhill a little bit, but victory over Henry Briones. Shout out to Briones. But I just want to say I do have a lot of respect for Douglas Silva de Andrade here. He's coming into this fight with a 4-inch reach advantage. But then you got Cody, man. Cody, a very solid fighter, man. He has the wrestling background. His boxing has come a long way. Throws some nice leg kicks. His striking has come around. A very solid dude in general. We'll also mention that, man. A very good dude. And a fighter that's coming off some big victories. not against the biggest of names, but you have to understand the fighter he just took on in Luan Lacerda, that's a fighter that had a lot of respect coming into the UFC, and I think that he'll be hanging around in the octagon, really putting in some work, pulling subs off and stuff like that. So Cody took over that fight as it went on, knocked out Eddie Wineland like he should have in the first round. Eddie obviously aged and whatnot. Before that, losses to Syed Nurmagomedov. Once again, we talk about him, Marab Divalishvili, and Jimmy Rivera, all high-caliber fighters. Went to a draw with Song Yadong, had a victory over my arch nemesis, Brian Kelleher. I like the resume of Cody, man. I do. I'm not crazy about the fact that he's going to have a 4-inch reach disadvantage here, but that's nothing new. He always has a reach disadvantage. He knows how to use his footwork and get on the inside. And then even though we talk about how Douglas is still stepping in the cage looking to be in phenomenal shape, as you see him here, you have to understand that Father Time does catch up to all, and when you're creeping up on 40 in the bantamweight division, that is a little bit of a problem. Meanwhile, Cody is hitting the prime of his career right now. He's stepping into the cage with a lot of confidence. Give me Cody Stamann. I think that these guys will slug it out on the feet. I think Douglas is going to throw some bombs towards Cody's way, but I think that Cody weathers the storm early, uses his footwork, and just kind of takes over the fight slowly but surely. Maybe presses Douglas up against the cage a little bit here or there. But I do think that this fight will take place in the feet for the most part. When you look at Douglas, he's had some big knockouts. But when you're looking at fights that he's been in that have gone to a decision, only winning 20, if you look at his victories, the extensive victories he has, only 21% of those victories were via decision, where Cody, on the other hand, 58% of those victories via decision. I can see this fight going to a decision, and I think it just favors Cody a little bit more so. He's just, the way he moves around, the judges like the way he moves around. He's very technical. He lands those nice big shots. His boxing's good. And I think I see him winning a decision here. I think this fight goes to the judges' scorecards, and he takes 2 of the 3 rounds. But early on, Douglas will be throwing some bombs towards his way. All right, so let's take a look at the betting line here. All right, Cody should be the favorite here. I do expect him to be the favorite here, and I do know he is the favorite. He's a minus 165 favorite. The comeback on Douglas at plus 133. That line, pretty much where you would expect it to be. Maybe you could even say that the line should come down a little bit. Maybe Cody should be more about a minus 150 if you really want to be a little bit more nail on the head, of my opinion. And maybe Douglas, maybe you could say that line moves a little bit more down, towards a plus 125 or whatnot. So maybe some value on that plus 133 line. I think Cody gets the job done, though. I do. In the heavyweight division, we got Karl Williams taking on Chase Sherman. Karl Williams had a big-time victory on Dana White's Contender Series. If you guys remember, he was a big-time dog, or he was at least a solid underdog going into that match against Jimmy Lawson, the Division I wrestler, a fighter that people really had a lot of praise to give towards based on the wrestling pedigree up in the heavyweight division. After that victory where he was able to take down Jimmy Lawson and put Lawson on his back, had him looking like a turtle or a tortoise laying on his shell there, gets his victory in his UFC debut against Lucas Bresky. We have respect for Bresky. He just came through with an official play for us, or on an official play. So that was a big victory for him there. Although, realistically, I'm not really overly impressed with what I've been seeing from Lucas. Even that fight that he just took, I'm not overly impressed with it. But Karl Williams did what he needed to do. He's a well-rounded fighter. He only has 9 pro fights. I think we see him get better and better rapidly. Again, he's only 30. He's 33 years old, got into the game a little bit later. Not a lot of experience there. I think we see rapid improvement from him. We know in the heavyweight division, you can learn throughout your 30s. It's not the end of the world if you're getting through the game there. We might see the best version of Karl Williams when he's 37 years old. We'll see how it goes. Chase Sherman, 33 years old, obviously has a lot more experience going into this fight. He has 27 pro fights. I enjoy watching him scrap because he's always willing to slug it out. He brings the fight. In his last fight, we saw him take an L against Waldo Cortez Acosta, was landing the leg kicks early on, didn't stick to them. Like we just saw Marcos Rogerio de Lima do. Chase Sherman should have stuck more to those leg kicks, and eventually Chase started getting pieced up. And I think that Chase is vulnerable to getting a big old jab from Karl Williams right in his face. I could see Karl Williams changing levels on him. I could see Karl Williams just being a better athlete and just taking this fight here. That's how I see it going. So I won't dive too much deeper into this fight. Let's take a look at the betting line. Karl Williams is a minus 400 favorite, and the Shermanator is a plus 310. Chase Sherman probably takes an L here, hops back on the old hog with the crew, and, goes to the local bar and slams down a couple brewskis, and he'll be all right. He's got the boys to back him up. I think he's in some type of, biker clique and whatnot. He's a cool dude, man. Chase Sherman should probably find himself playing a role in a movie down the line. Maybe throw him in one of those Sons of Anarchy shows or whatnot. He has the look, the little blonde hair in the front's dangling on his forehead. Like he didn't even do it on purpose. It naturally fell and dangles as he moves. It glazes over the blue eyes. So shout out to Chase Sherman, but I think he has a rough night. I absolutely love this matchup here. Two legends of the fight game, Matt Brown, Court McGee. Both guys as tough as it gets. Both guys coming off the Ultimate Fighter, different eras or whatnot. But Court McGee, I believe he won his the season that he was on for the Ultimate Fighter. We know his background, right? He's a fighter or a guy that almost died. He almost overdosed. He had a second chance at life, and he just uses his toughness and his grit to just really push towards the top of life, man. He's an awesome dude. Matt Brown, just a legend. What a cool dude Matt Brown is as well. A savage. It's no wonder why he's 42 years old and he's still dabbling in the fight game and looking to be in phenomenal shape going into this fight. From what I've seen from him on Instagram, looks to be in really good shape for a 42-year-old. And shout out to Mark Coleman as well. Mark Coleman has been shedding some pounds, has been hitting the pads, looking good. Two legends in that picture as well. Of course, Mark Coleman, man, the Hammer, what a G he is. And we know that Mark Coleman has always been around Matt Brown throughout his career. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know, did Matt Brown maybe have a near-death experience as well? Maybe, I don't know. You guys correct me if I'm wrong. Comment below if you remember what I'm talking about. I think Matt Brown might have almost overdosed or something crazy happened with him as well. So both these guys, very, very tough. Both guys typically have very good chins, but I think it's worth noting that Court McGee is coming off a big-time knockout loss against Jeremiah Wells, was knocked out in the first round. I think he underestimated Wells a little bit there, was looking to try to get the fight going there, try to wear on him, and ate a big shot, and he should have been a little bit more defensively sound. Before that, though, victories over Ramiz Brahimaj and Claudio Silva, Hannibal there. So still, showing as of recently, he can take out some decent dudes, man. Ramiz is a well-rounded fighter, a good grappler. He was able to take that fight tee off on him a little bit there, which that fight really kind of points me towards the direction. I think Court McGee still has a little bit more to give, at least offensively as well. Matt Brown, I mean, we got to talk about the big loss that he took. A lot of people thought he should have won that fight against Bryan Barberena. I thought that he should have. It was in his hometown. He's a legend. That fight was so razor close. I thought that Matt Brown deserved to get the nod there, but he didn't. Before that, he knocked out Diego Lima. Diego Lima, also a common opponent. I saw Diego Lima fight Court McGee. That was the first fight of an event. I was there live for it. There was nobody there yet, but Diego Lima had some of his boys in the crowd. They were going crazy. You could hear it in the arena. There's just a couple guys there yelling. I really feel like they skewed the judges' scorecards there because I did feel that Court McGee did defeat Diego Lima. In fact, he did. He controlled that fight. But Matt Brown showing some power too. I mean, that was in 2021, mid 2021. It's 2 years ago now. We're talking about, Matt Brown's now 42 years old. I'm sorry, man. I gotta take Court McGee here. I will be rooting for Matt Brown because I'm a big fan of his. I've been a big fan of his for a long time. I like Court McGee as well, but I'm a bigger fan of Matt Brown's. And but I have to say Court McGee, though. I think the 4 years makes a little bit of a difference there. I could see Court McGee kind of moving just a little bit quicker as this fight goes to the late second, third rounds. And I think that volume that he'll put out there might be the difference. And we definitely got to pull up the significant stats here as well. Let's take a look real quick because we know there's lengthy numbers to go through. They both have had a lengthy UFC career. Court McGee, just as expected, putting out 4.68 strikes per minute. Well, Matt Brown, 3.77. I think Court McGee will be more active. He has that pitter-patter style, but he's pressing on you. He's landing. I think that would be the difference when it goes to the judges' scorecards. Although you have to take into consideration also Court does eat more shots. But I think that Brown will be eating some shots here. I don't think the movement's quite what it once was. Let's take a look at that betting line. This will be a fun one here. Court McGee is a minus 210 favorite. The comeback on Matt Brown at plus 170. Not a lot of confidence in Court McGee coming off that knockout loss. I mean, Matt Brown, a legend. Crowd will be going crazy. But yeah, Give me Court McGee. I'll side with him even with the -210 line. Matt Brown is up there in age, and I think that this is the fight where he probably retires, and I think that we really see the age fully catch up to him here. Speaking of aged fighters, Tim Means, now 39 years old, taking on Alex Morono, only 32, cruising into the prime of his career. We know Alex Morono has an extensive resume, 31 pro fights. He's had the luxury of stepping in there with some legends. Remember the beatdown he put on Cowboy. Alex Morono has that herky-jerky type of striking. I believe he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's a very well-rounded fighter, and he just makes his style work for him in the octagon. He knows how to impose his style in the octagon. He's crafty, kind of light on his feet. He has this, like I said, this herky-jerky type of motion, and he lands. Right? Tim Means, a little bit more in your face, has that slick slip and rip type boxing. We know that he has KO power. We've seen him starch dudes. He's a fighter that makes a lot of mental errors in the cage, a lot of mental errors. There's a lot of fights we can go back to. When he got caught with that standing guillotine by D-Rod. There's just a couple of different fights where he's dropped the ball, and some of those fights he was up early too. A fighter that back in his day when he was still a younger, more prime fighter, this was a fighter that really had some raw skills. Tim, the Dirty Bird Means, he spent some time in prison, came out, got back into the sport of MMA, got really deep into it. I think he had some type of boxing background or whatnot. I've been a big fan of his boxing throughout the years. I still love to watch him when he used to fight down in the lightweight division. If you guys remember, he used to be skinny, long in the division. He was still landing on guys. He's a fighter that just really was fun for me to watch from way back in the day. So I have nothing but respect towards Tim Means' way. But 39 years old, he's been coaching, as you guys saw. He's been spending a lot of time coaching, I believe, a high school wrestling team. And I don't know, man. He's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage here. I'm not really too worried about that, though. I think Alex Morono closes the distance, lands some big shots. Alex Morono was looking very good in his last fight before being caught by Santiago Ponzinibbio. He was up on the scorecards, once again showing that as the fights play out, he lands on his opponents. And I think he lands on Tim Means here, man. I do. And I don't know how much faith I have in Tim Means at this point in time right now with the age and all that. Alex Morono landing 5.22 strikes per minute. Means a very high number as well, 4.91. Morono absorbing slightly more. But Tim Means not the same fighter. It's not when he's not that same young dude that's slipping and dodging those punches. I think he's there to be hit a little bit more so, and I don't think he takes him as well. I am going to be taking Alex Morono to get the job done here. I'm not sure if he necessarily stops Tim Means. I mean, we'll take a look real quick. Tim Means was submitted by Kevin Holland. We know Kevin Holland is a solid finisher, though. Went to a decision with Max Griffin just recently. Max Griffin possesses some big power. I don't know. Maybe Morono could hurt him and pull off some type of sub. Morono is crafty, like I said, with the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills. But I'll lean more towards a decision for Alex Morono here. I think that this time he doesn't get caught late and he goes to the scorecards and he takes that W. Give me Alex Morono, and let's take a look at what the betting line is talking about here. Alex Morono is a -230 favorite. So, -230 favorite. Tim Means a +188. Maybe is there more value in that +188 line? It's a dangerous line to really take, man. Don't put nothing up big on Tim Means there. He's unreliable. Just maybe stay away from that one. Give me Alex Morono even at the 230 line, I guess. I just don't have a lot of trust in Tim Means right now. But understand, if he comes fully motivated and if he can show to be anything similar to what he was a couple years back, he is dangerous. And Alex Morono is coming off a knockout loss. So take that into consideration. Maybe more value on that +188 line. Hey, guys, real quick. The Mackenzie Dern versus Angela Hill fight was just scratched, unfortunately. The bout is rescheduled, so we'll be diving into this fight again. Quick little spoiler, Angela Hill was the underdog, and I was leaning towards Angela Hill's way. I was a little surprised to see where that line was. We know Mackenzie Dern, the BJJ specialist, but Angela Hill just keeps going out there and putting in work, and great takedown defense. I thought she could have kept this fight standing and outstruck Mackenzie Dern, but we'll talk more about that another time. We got the number 15th ranked welterweight Daniel Rodriguez taking on Garry. Ian, the future Garry, only 25 years old, looking to crack the top 15 here with the victory over D-Rod. D-Rod 17-3 as a pro. It's a nice little resume there. 11-0 for Garry. The experience Edge definitely goes to D-Rod. He's a scrappy dude, very tough. We could talk a little bit about some of his recent fights. He was submitted by Neil Magny late in that fight. He had some early success in that fight, though. He was looking good at points in time in that fight. Eventually, though, Neil Magny's pressure did break him. Before that, he had the victory over Li Jinglang, the Leech. We'll call him the Leech. Listen, the vast majority, pretty much everybody knew that the Leech won that fight, so that was a bad robbery. I think Dana White still gave the Leech his win bonus and all that. So really, he's coming into this fight coming off 2 losses. And then his only other loss there was against Nicholas Dalby, and that was a very closely contested match as well. Victories over Mike Perry, Preston Parsons, Kevin Lee, Dwight Grant, Gabe Green. We talked about Gabe Green earlier. Tim Means, submitted Tim Means. I mean, there's no question that D-Rod is a legitimate fighter. He is 36 years old. I do wonder where his head's at as far as how far he wants to push it in the fight game at this point in time. How hungry is he? Obviously, Ian Garry, a very young fighter who's looking up at the stars. I mean, he might be a little bit more of a hungry kid right now. Shout out to my boy Sasha Palatnikov. I know he's real tight with D-Rod as well, and Sasha's a good dude, man. I talk with him once in a while, man, and I believe he has a big fight coming up over on the karate side of things, that karate striking against Raymond Daniels. You guys know Raymond Daniels, one of the greatest strikers of all time. So I'm very excited for that. I do believe that's the matchup. Hopefully I'm not misspeaking there. I thought I saw something about that. If you guys know Raymond Daniels and Sasha, they're going to get down. So my boy Sasha's going to starch him. But, D-Rod, so back to what I was saying, I kind of wonder where D-Rod is mentally. I feel like Ian Garry is just, he's the younger fighter here, man. I don't know, man. He's quick. And besides all that other nonsense, Ian Garry is talented, man. He has that it factor, man. He's coming in. There's a reason why he's been very hyped up, man. He has that long frame. His striking is just stellar. And then you mix that with the fact that he's been training with Henry Hooft for some time. And he's training over at, I still want to call it Sanford MMA, but Team Killcliff. They're going to mold him just to be such a phenomenal fighter. Both men with the 74-inch reach. D-Rod got some long limbs as well. Ian Garry 2 inches taller. I just think that Ian Garry is going to have success once again in the striking range. But you have to understand that D-Rod is a phenomenal striker as well. He's a bully. He'll look to close the distance and put it on Garry. This fight might play out to be a little bit ugly, but I still got to side with Ian Garry. Ian Garry's he's looked so good as of recently, and he's looking better and better. Coming off the knockout victory over Song Kenan, the decision victory over Gabriel Green, just kind of danced on him, danced on Darian Weeks, knocked out Jordan Williams. I mean, he's really starting to hit his stride here, and he's only going to look better. He's only 25 years old, and he's going to look phenomenal here in the next couple of years. Will he ever be able to hold gold like his fellow countrymen once did? Time will tell. We're a while away from that. He has a big test in front of him. Let's see if he can pass that test. And he is a minus 275 favorite against D-Rod, who's a plus 220. That's a high line, man. D-Rod's, he's scrappy. He's going to show up. I'm not crazy about that line. I think Ian Garry gets the job done, but what are you going to do with that minus 275 line? You're going to throw it in a parlay? Hey, you guys, real quick, just letting you know, if you're looking for a new sports book, you guys know I support Bovada.lv. I think it's the best website out there. It's what I use. If you're looking to sign up, please reach out to me. Let me shoot you my referral link. I will hook you guys up if you guys sign up through my referral link. Obviously, I get a little bit of credit. You get an added bonus to your account, but I'm hooking you guys up with a bunch of official plays. Any questions you guys have about anything, I'm there to support you. All right, guys, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I got my email, my Instagram, Twitter, scrolling below. Shoot me a message however you like. We got the number 5 light heavyweight fighter, Anthony Smith, making his return, taking on the number 7th light heavyweight fighter, Johnny Walker. Top 10 matchup here. This fight, you guys comment below. Is this the most exciting fight on the card? I mean, Johnny Walker has been on an absolute tear once again. He's an awesome dude to support and to cheer on. I mean, he has a funny personality. He was going through some tough times. It's great to see that he's rebounded. Now, when you actually look at those losses that he was taking, they don't look as bad these days, man, especially after he cleaned things up with the 2 victories over Paul Craig and Ian Cutelaba. Lost to Jamal Hill, the current champ. He got knocked out. We know Hill has heavy hands. The loss to Thiago Santos. You know how dangerous Santos is in that fight. It was really like 2 boys just hanging out, sparring because they weren't going at it at all. Nothing really going on there. He knocks out Ryan Spann before that. Then lost this to Nikita Krylov, who's an absolute terror, maybe the black sheep of the division. You guys are going to see what's up with him real soon. And then he got knocked out by Corey Anderson. Before that, Corey Anderson, the Bellator kingpin right now over there, really. I mean, he's been looking great. Believe he lost his last fight, but, the first time what happened was messed up. He should have won that. I don't know, a bunch of crazy stuff. Corey Anderson's dangerous, and he's knocked out a lot of big names. So if you don't remember Corey, maybe you need to brush up on Corey Anderson. And then, of course, all the damage that he did, bursting on the scene in the UFC, knocking all these guys out in the clinch, just running through these guys. Johnny Walker's dangerous. He's only 31 years old, and check out the reach, an 82-inch reach. He's going to have a 6-inch reach advantage over Anthony Smith. He doesn't always use his range the best. Sometimes he likes to get on the inside, likes to clinch up and drop elbows and whatnot. But if he can use that a little bit, I think he can land from the outside a little bit. But things are going to get ugly. I do believe things are going to get ugly. And, I'm feeling that Johnny Walker lands some big shots in this fight. Anthony Smith has taken some damage throughout the last couple of years. We know that he's taken some serious damage. We remember when his teeth were falling out of his mouth as Glover Teixeira was pounding him in. It was just finished by Magomed Ankalaev, in my opinion, the uncrowned king. I do believe that he will be holding gold fairly soon. I think that he takes out Jamal Hill. I think he takes out Yuri Prohaska. I think that he takes out a lot of those guys. So, obviously a little unfortunate situation with him with that draw and all that against Jan Blachowicz. But, Anthony Smith, losing to the cream of the crop there, but nevertheless, getting knocked out once again. I know he was on a 3-fight winning streak before that, taking out Spann, Clark. All right. Before that, losses to Rakic and to Teixeira. I don't know. Something just tells me that Johnny Walker shows up here. He's 31 years old. I think he's just getting better and better. And I think he learned a lot from those losses. And I think that he lands a big shot. I think that he potentially gets a finish here on Anthony Smith in the second or third rounds later on in this fight. I don't know. I mean, Anthony Smith might have that ground edge. Maybe he can use his jiu-jitsu, try to play it safe and get this fight down to the mat. Maybe try to pull off a sub, something slick like we saw him do against Alexander Gustafsson or something like that. But I'm not really feeling that. I think that Johnny Walker continues to sharpen up his skill set, and he does okay there. And I'm taking Johnny Walker to get the job done. Let's take a look at this betting line. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. Flat pick'em odds right now, -112 to -112 on Bovada.lv. Remember, if you guys are looking to sign up to the sportsbook, reach out to me, give you my referral link, and I will hook you guys up. All right, you're looking out. If you sign up to my referral link, I will look out for you guys. Pick'em line, pick your poison. Give me Johnny Walker here. Maybe we pour up a little glass of the Johnny Walker Blue in celebration if he gets a victory. It's a dangerous fight, light heavyweight division. This fight can go a lot of different ways, but I feel comfortable siding with Johnny with all his momentum right now. A top 15 heavyweight showdown. Jairzinho, Rozenstruik taking on Jailton, Almeida. You got to be pumped up for this fight. Jailton, Almeida facing a little bit more of a test here. We know that he's passed with flying colors every time he stepped into the octagon. I mean, the dude is just a freak. Great grappling. He's working on his striking. I mean, he just possesses solid power, nasty ground and pound. Jairzinho Rozenstruik, maybe one of the more underrated strikers. I know a lot of you guys know he's already a solid striker, but maybe people are sleeping on him a little bit. He's had some of the most devastating knockout victories that we've seen in the octagon, coming off another knockout victory over Chris Daukaus. His losses all to the cream of the crop. Lost to Alexander Volkov, Curtis Blades. Before that, knocks out Augusto Sakai. Lost to Cyril Gahn before that, cream of the crop. Knocks out Junior Dos Santos before that. Then he was knocked out by Francis Ngannou, cream of the crop. All right. Knocks out Alistair Overeem. Knocks out Andre Arlovsky. Knocks out Alan Crowder. How nasty was the Alan Crowder knockout, right? Knocks out Junior Albini. Robert McCarthy. We can go back outside the UFC. Knockouts after knockout after knockout. He's a dangerous fighter. Okay. We know that if he lands, it's going to be a problem. One thing that I haven't liked from Jairzinho is when he faces off against some of that stiff competition that we talked about, some of these alphas. I don't know. It's kind of like he knows the guys he should run through, and then he knows the guys that are slightly a step above him, right? It's like he kind of understands it, and he kind of is hesitant in the cage. We've seen that from him. And I have a feeling that he's going to kind of know that when he's looking across the cage and he's looking at Jailton Almeida, who's just an absolute stud. And I think he'll be a little bit worried about the takedown. And I think that Rozenstruik will be hesitant, although he still be very dangerous if he lands that big shot on the feet. But Almeida will have the ability to get this fight down to the mat potentially and really rain some nasty ground and pound or look to set up a sub. Let's take a look at some of the numbers here. Jailton Almeida, 70% takedown accuracy. That's a high number. On the other hand, Rozenstruik's never even taken a shot. Takedown defense for Rozenstruik, surprisingly 75% takedown defensive rate. That's very high. I don't know. I can still see Almeida ripping him down to the mat though, on the feet. Almeida landing about one significant strike more. But you know what? I don't think he wants to play that game. I'm going to edge Rozenstruik. If Almeida's just going to sit there and play that striking game, Rozenstruik's dangerous. He's technical. But when you mix in the factor of Almeida, changing levels and looking to mix in those takedowns, that's what's going to put Rozenstruik on the back foot. It's going to give him problems there. Jailton Almeida only absorbing 0.34 strikes per minute, which is obviously extremely low compared to Rozenstruik's 3.23. I'm excited for this match. You guys know where I'm going with this. Jailton Almeida is my pick here. I think he's pretty much everybody's pick. Let's go take a look at the betting line. He's in minus 550 favorite. That's pretty damn high for a heavyweight match against a dangerous striker like Rozenstruik. But that's just the type of line you're going to be talking about when you talk about a guy like Jailton Almeida. I'm not really going to be raving about a minus 550 line. I'm not mixing it in my parlays. He's going to go out there and probably handle business. But you never know. It's the heavyweight division, main event fight, step up in competition. Can Rozenstruik land that big shot? And real quick, Rozenstruik's still 35 years old. He has plenty left to give to the game. Only 17 pro fights. Doesn't have a lot of mileage on him. Has a 78-inch reach. Only 1 inch less than Almeida. He has a frame on him as well. He's about an inch shorter. Rozenstruik, biggie boy. He's not a small dude. So it'll be interesting to see if Jailton can really bully him in there. And it's also worth mentioning, the competition that Jailton has been fighting has not been on the level of a Jairzinho Rozenstruik. So that's what you have to understand why I'm not really feeling that minus 550 line. The victory over Shamil Abdurakhimov, Anton Turkaj, he submitted him in the first round. Pork Reporter submitted him in the first round. Shout out to Porker. Had a big victory this week, and I was happy for him. That was beautiful watching him talk on the mic. Very happy for him there. And then the victory over Ocasio dos Santos. A lot of you aren't even familiar with him. Knocked out. That was actually a submission match there, so we're not even talking about that. He knocked out Danilo Marquez, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specialist there. And Ocasio dos Santos, he also fought on Dana White's Contender Series. That's why I thought for a second they fought, but no. Real quick, I'll pull it up. In fact, Jailton Almeida on Dana White's Contender Series, he took on, we got to pull that up here. Where was that fight? All these grappling matches. Oh, it was against Nazaredinov, which I think it would be interesting to pull up what he's done since then. So a win and a loss since then, but he was a fighter that people were keeping an eye on as well. All right, so that's my pick, and that's my main event pick. All right, guys, we're wrapping things up over here. You guys know I got to shoot you a message. I'm sweating. You can't tell under the hat. It's getting hot in here. Need to turn the AC up, but I was just in the zone. Was really enjoying just breaking down this card. I love when I'm feeling energetic and just excited to talk about these fights. I enjoyed this breakdown here. Like I said, man, we had a profitable weekend this past weekend. You guys know this year's been, we've had some ups and downs, man. There's been a lot of tricky fights. So, it felt good to put a couple units in our pocket. It felt good to give those 2 free play deliveries to you guys. I might be giving out a free play this week. Not positive at the moment. I got some things going on. Going to be attending a funeral tomorrow. Not necessarily somebody that was extremely close to me, but, someone, in the circle nonetheless. And always, you want to appreciate life, right? You guys always got to think about that. Nothing like a funeral to kind of make you think about that type of stuff. And, hopefully you guys are all enjoying yourselves and taking care of yourselves. I'll throw this at you as well. Something I've been doing recently, taking on a big time project on the side here. It's strictly by choice as well. Obviously, I could hire someone to do this job. I've laid pavers before, laying down bricks and whatnot, ripping roots out, digging the trenches and laying the foundation and all that. I know how to do it, but I'm doing it. Laying a giant patio. I'm doing it by myself. I decided I wanted to do this because I wanted to lose a little bit of weight. get better in shape, still hitting the gym up and all that, but I know I'm going to get in really good shape when you're doing that landscaping type of work. I've done that for years, not so much recently, but that's always a great way to get in shape. And it's going to be a challenge, but I already know what I'm doing. It's just a matter of putting in that work, ripping those roots out, digging, transferring dirt, carrying shit and all that. And I'm excited for it. The summer's creeping up. It's going to be hot out there and living in Florida. And, I'm excited for it. It just kind of hit me. Maybe some of you guys need to look for some type of project like that, man, to get you going. If you've been feeling like you've been stuck in the mud a little bit, maybe there's something that you think that you really can't do, but you can do. It's going to take some time and some effort, but a little project you can get on that will sharpen you up and get you going. Get you going. All right. So think about that. If there's something you need to do around the house, there's some type of project, you can get on that. All right. So, and I got a couple different projects I'm balancing right now. It's been tough. Working on completing an entire gym in my garage. Got to show you guys that. I'll have it posted on IG. But hanging up the heavy bag, drilling that into the concrete, putting mats down. Got to show you guys my gym as well once I get that all done. But I got a couple projects I'm balancing, and I'm feeling good, man. You eat good, you feel good, keep your energy levels good, take care of yourself, and you guys enjoy the fights this upcoming weekend, man. You guys know I got nothing but love towards your guys' way. Appreciate all your guys' support. Hit that like button on your way out if you haven't already. Subscribe if you guys haven't. Catch me on all my social media. All right, guys. Signing out. Teller.
Welcome to the show. This the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.